Good day, my wonderful students. My name is Olawale Benishola, your commerce teacher. Once again, welcome to this lesson brought to you by Igota Virtual Learning. Today, we will be exploring an essential topic in the WAEC syllabus, foreign trade, part 1. We will be diving into the meaning of foreign trade, its types, and some crucial concepts in international trade. Moving on, let us start with our lesson objectives. What are the lesson objectives that we are bound to achieve by the end of this lesson? You are going to understand the concept of foreign trade and its types. You will understand the key terms in international trade. You'll be able to differentiate between balance of trade and balance of payment. And finally, you'll be able to comprehend bilateral and multilateral agreements and counter trade. Let us begin by defining what is foreign trade. Foreign trade is also known as international trade. Refers to the exchange of goods and services between two or more countries. It is actually the backbone of global economy, allowing nations to benefit from each other's resources, expertise, and products. Furthermore, we can also go on to say that through foreign trade, a nation can obtain goods that it has no capacity to produce. That are countries that have no resources or material to produce goods. They can exchange with another country. They can purchase that goods from another country or raw materials. It can also be defined as the exchange of goods and services between the people of different countries. Foreign trade involves the term exports and imports. For example, Nigeria can sell crude oil to America and purchase electronics from the basic principle of international trade is that a country should specialize in the production of these goods for which has the greatest advantage over others. Let us move on to talk about the types of foreign trade. There are different types of foreign trade. Let us start with imports. Now, imports, this involves buying of goods and services from each other countries. For example, just I've mentioned Nigeria importing electronics from China or from America. We also have exports, that's number 2. This is the sale of goods and services to other countries. Nigeria exports crude oil to many countries worldwide. We also have what we call entrepots. Entrepots. It is also known as re-exports. It involves importing goods, then exporting them to another country with little or no mistake. For example, for instance, Singapore often acts as entrepot for goods moving between Asian countries and the West, that is America and Europe. Let us go deep down into the forms of foreign trade. There's what we call bilateral and there's what we call multilateral. Under bilateral, this occurs when one country agrees to exchange goods and services with another country. It involves buying and selling between two countries, that is buy. Now, when we talk about multilateral trade, this involves buying and selling among many countries, and it occurs when each nation buy and sell with whatever country they wish to purchase from. This results in a greater volume of trade being carried out on more than a bilateral trade agreement. Example, we have Nigeria as multilateral agreement with America, China, Russia, Britain, Holland, and so on and so forth. As I've earlier explained that there are different types of foreign trade where we have imports, exports, like that. Furthermore, imports and export trade are kind of having sub comprising. So let me start with import trade now. We said import trade is the process of buying and selling, purchase of goods and services from other nations. That's when you buy from a country into your country. No problem. But under import trade, we also have what we call visible imports and invisible imports. Now, based on the word visible, that is something that we can see, and based on the word invisible, that is something that we cannot see. So when you talk about visible imports, take note, 2 words: imports, visible. Now, imports, when you bring something into the country. Now, visible imports implies to the physical, tangible, something that we can touch, something that we can hold, which are purchased from other countries. including automobiles, equipment, machinery, rice, electronics. Something that you can hold and something that you can touch. While invisible imports, these are services provided by other countries. Invisible imports that cannot be seen physically, but we can, have a feeling of it. Now that's invisible. You cannot touch it, unlike visible that we can touch and feel. Example, we have banking, insurance, payment for travels, transportation, shipping. All these are invisible. We cannot feel them. But visible imports, we can feel them, we can hold them, but invisible import, we cannot feel them. So that is the difference between visible imports and invisible imports. Let's move on to based on what we call export trade. Now, though I've explained briefly previously during the lesson, so let me go down and let me explain furthermore. Now, export trade, as I've said earlier on, is when that a particular country carries its own products out of the country to sell. Actually, you are selling your own product. Nigeria is selling crude oil, Nigeria is selling palm oil, Nigeria is selling groundnut to other countries. That's export, going out. Now, export can be also be divided into two, that is visible and invisible, just like we have in its counterpart, that is import. Now, under visible export, these are tangible goods sold to other countries. That means that these are tangible products. These are physical products that can be touched. Crude oil, cotton, palm oil. While invisible export, these are goods that are not tangible. These are services sold to a country to other countries. Like Nigeria is selling this to other countries. Banking, insurance, transport. Let's talk about some basic concepts in international trade. We're going to start with terms of trade. What I say, terms of trade. Now, this refers to the ratio between a country's export prices and its import prices. Now, favorable terms of trade means a country can buy more imports for its exports. Now, I talk about the ratio differences between an importing goods and an exporting goods. We can also move on to say that it is a rate at which a country's exports is exchanged for its imports. It is the relationship between the prices of exports and prices of imports. It is measured as the ratio of index of export prices to index of import prices, expressed as a percentage. It can be given as index over export price over index of import price times 100. A country has favorable terms of trade if the prices of its exports are higher than the prices of its imports, and unfavorable if the index of imports is greater than exports. Next, let us talk about balance of trade. Now, we are still under basic concepts in international trade. Let's talk about balance of trade. Now, what is balance of trade? Now, this is the difference between the monetary value of a country's exports and imports over a specific period. Now, let us look at Nigeria, for example. Now, let us look at the way the dollar is rising against Nigeria's naira. Now, that is the difference. What is the difference between the monetary value of Nigeria's exports and Nigeria's export? As at this moment that I'm making this video, Nigeria's value to the dollar is 1,658 naira. So whatever we are purchasing from America based on dollars would be 1,658 to a naira, which to a dollar, actually to a dollar, which makes it quite complicated for Nigeria's purchase of foreign goods to be quite difficult, as at this moment I'm making this video. So a positive balance, more exports than import. That means that if Nigeria wants to gain more, that means Nigeria has to keep exporting its product outside of the country sell their raw materials outside of the country than what we are importing into the country if we want the Nigerian naira to balance with the American dollar, which is called trade surplus. Now, the negative balance, that means if more import is coming than export, that means that if we are importing more goods, if we are bringing in more foreign products than the domestic products that Nigeria has, what I'm saying is that if we are buying more foreign goods than what we are selling out to other countries, it is called trade deficit. That is a big problem to the business world in the Nigeria economic sector. Let's talk about balance of payment. That is another one under basic concepts in international trade. Now, what is balance of payment? This is a more wider concept than the balance of trade. Now, this one includes all transaction between a country and the rest of the world, including goods, services, and capital movement. Now, under balance of payments, we have components. We have current accounts, we have capital accounts, and we have monetary movement accounts. So I'll just briefly explain each one of them. So under current account, we are still talking about balance of payment now. Under current account, this account covers visible trade and invisible services. It covers merchandise, trade, services, and income. That is for current account. Let us come to capital accounts. Now, this account deals with short and long-term capital movement. Now, it shows changes in the volume of a country's foreign assets and liability. Now, let us move on to the last one, which is monetary movement account. That's the last one under the component of balance of payments. Now, under monetary movement account, this is an official settlement account which shows how a country's balance is current and capital accounts. We still have other basic concepts in foreign trade. Now, there is what we call favorable and unfavorable balance. A favorable balance occurs when exports, when a country is selling more of its raw materials, is selling more of its locally made materials to other countries. That is, example now, if Nigeria is selling more of its locally made goods, crude oil, yam, cassava, outside to other countries, more than the way we import. But unfortunately, that's not our story. But we explain that in a later time. Now, that is favorable balance occurs when exports goes beyond imports, and unfavorable balance is when imports exceed exports. We have visible and invisible items. Visible items are tangible goods, which I've explained within import and export trade. Now we have visible items and invisible items. Visible items are tangible goods that can be seen and touched, like cars or clothes, while invisible items are services and other intangible things such as banking services and tourism. Now, we also have counter trade. Now, counter trade is a form of international trade where goods or services are exchanged for other goods or services other than money. It is common when countries faces currency shortages. That is under counter trade. It is time for another WAEC practice questions. So for each questions, we are going to practice the answer. We are going to look into why one answer is right and why the others are wrong. Question number 1. Which of the following best describes foreign trade? This one is coming from WAEC 2018. Option A, trade within a country. Option B, trade between two countries. Option C, trade within a continent. And option D, trade within a region. Think about the answer. The correct answer is option B, trade between two countries. Foreign trade, by definition, involves the exchange of goods and services across national borders. Question number 2. An example of invisible trade is dash. This one's coming from WAEC 2019. A, exporting cocoa. B. Importing machinery. C. Shipping services. And D. Exporting crude oil. What's your answer? The correct answer is option C, shipping services. Invisible trade refers to the exchange of services or intangible goods, and shipping services fall under this category. Question number 3. The difference between the value of visible exports and visible imports is called dash. This one's coming from WAEC 2020. Option A, balance of payments. Option B, terms of trade. Option C, balance of trade. And option D, counter trade. Think about the answer. The correct answer is option C, that is balance of trade. The balance of trade specifically refers to the difference between the value of a country's exports and imports of visible, that is tangible goods. Question number 4. Which of the following is an example of entrepot, that is re-export? This one's coming from WAEC 2017. Option A, Nigeria selling oil to Ghana. Option B, Singapore importing electronics from China and re-exporting to Indonesia. Option C, USA exporting wheat to Nigeria. And option D, Kenya importing tea from India. Take your moment carefully. What is your answer? The correct answer is option B, Singapore importing electronics from China and re-exporting to Indonesia. Entrepot trade involves importing goods and then re-exporting them with little or no modifications. Let's quickly run down through the summary of what we have done in today's lesson. We have explored foreign trade, understanding its types, imports, exports, and entrepot. We have also dived into crucial concepts such as terms of trade, balance of trade, and balance of payments. Remember the difference between visible and invisible items and the concept of bilateral and multilateral agreements. Well, understanding foreign trade is crucial in our globalized and advanced world. Whether you're a future entrepreneur considering importing goods or a policymaker thinking about Nigerian trade agreements, these concepts will be invaluable. Keep practicing with past questions and stay curious about international trade news. Your understanding of this concept will give you an edge in both your exams and your future career. Thank you very much for your attention today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out by contacting the number on your screen. Keep learning, and I will see you in our next lesson.